All right, hello everybody. I am Shinobi here today with the Rage to speak with Alex Thorn from Galaxy Digital. And I don't even really know what to say to start this off. Um, this is one of the craziest, intense events that I've been through in over a decade in this space. A a hardware wallet's flaw has actually led to the theft of funds. I did not think I would ever say those words out loud in a serious manner, um, but here I am. So I guess Alex, uh, I guess the first thing to go into, while we're waiting for Portland to jump on, is to maybe talk a little bit about the scope before he's here to go into some of the more technical details.
Yeah,
Like what do we know in terms of the number of people affected, the amount of value that's been stolen, like what is more certainly known, what is kind of speculation.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me here, Shinobi. Very tough time, obviously, and there are a lot of good people working across the ecosystem here to do a variety of things. Right in Portland, Rob Hamilton, Kyle A bunch of other people in the red team working on additional code review, like vulnerability identification and disclosure in Coldcard and other hardware wallets and all the libraries and open source code that powers a variety of things, right? Sort of a reckoning on that side that, we didn't trust, but we also didn't sufficiently verify in the case of the Coldcard key generation. Um, I'm not an expert in that, so I've been focusing on helping on-chain fund flow tracing. So tracing the victim addresses and attacker addresses and profiles and patterns to help identify where coins sit today, um, produce lists of addresses that can be shared with law enforcement and crypto exchanges, cyber investigation teams, so that in the event these coins arrive at a centralized intermediary, they can be frozen and that victims have a chance of getting their funds back. That's what I'm good at. And it started as a, well, gosh, I'm pretty good at this, and I've got a powerful Bitcoin analytics stack at my fingertips. Why don't I start looking at it? And that's ballooned into a huge effort that, and we've become a beacon for victims to reach out and share their drained addresses and transaction IDs with us to help explain where their funds are. I've been providing to anyone that reaches out, although you've got to forgive me if it takes me a couple hours or longer because there's been an absolute deluge, but we're providing to anyone that reaches out assistance in drafting and providing uh, forensic reports they can use to file victim reports with local law enforcement, the FBI's IC3, other relevant fraud and anti-fraud and cyber crime organizations in their jurisdictions. But also because of victim reporting, we've been able to identify additional attacker patterns. And that's what we've been doing. So at a high level, I posted early this morning um, that we're now very confident that the losses have exceeded $100 million, about 1,600 Bitcoin. We have a substantial triage of candidate transactions and victim and attacker addresses that could be promoted into that high confidence set. As many as 2,400 Bitcoin above the 1,600 that we're very confident in. So this thing keeps going. Portland can talk more probably about the nature of the vulnerability, but you know, one way that I see that it's different and why it can keep growing from my seat looking at the on-chain data. I've talked to 100 victims now who have provided their data. I haven't calculated some of the newer ones today because I'm back in the office here in New York and working and haven't had time yet to triage some of the newer ones. But as of this morning, I directly am in communication with about 400 Bitcoin of the 1,600. So a quarter of the known high confidence funds I've spoken to. And, you know, all I can say, first of all, before I can go into some of what we know about the attacker patterns. There are more than one attacker absolutely at play in this threat environment. But before I do that, I just want to say that if you are a victim, um, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You should not feel ashamed. I know people do feel ashamed when they are victimized like this. You did everything right, and that's partly what makes this so tragic. But you can you still have agency. You can take action that increases the likelihood that you could be made whole. I don't know how strong that likelihood is, but it's not zero. And it increases dramatically if you file formal reports with relevant authorities to establish your victimhood early. If you have a cold card that's been drained, do not delete it. Do not destroy it. It could be evidence. It could be crucial, potentially in proving that you had the keys first. This vulnerability is such that, you know, simply signing a cryptographic message does not prove that you own the keys. And as we move forward in time, it will be even harder to prove because all the vulnerable keys will be cracked at some point. And so they're potentially, frankly, at some point, all the keys might be dumped in a paste bin or in a torrent file at some point, right? Like this. So you need to establish your victimhood, and you need to keep your evidence intact. And we can help you with that. So please reach out to me on X if you need help tracing your funds, gathering the information you need to file those reports. I'm providing that to everyone who reaches out. That's no cost or anything like that. You don't have to give me your personally identifiable information. All I need are the Bitcoin addresses that were drained. In most cases, that's all I need. Sometimes I also need transaction IDs. But again, that stuff is public blockchain data, right? So I'll send it back to you with a fulsome tracing of where your coins, in what part of the attack your coins were drained, where they sit today, what you should tell law enforcement, and all of that. Happy to do that to help people. So I can stop there, but I've done substantial work tracing this, Shinobi. So it's
Yeah,
ballooned.
real quick before we get into a little more, I think just for listeners, if you have been affected, the most important things to do are, like Alex said, do not delete anything off of that cold card. Don't wipe it, destroy it. Like, put it somewhere safe and just hold on to it. And there's no time urgency on this part, but any kind of KYC information that you can personally put together for yourself, showing deposits into that wallet from any exchanges that you might have used, that is good information to just collect and get together, as it will be a very good supporting basis to go along with that piece of hardware to have a stronger claim and proof for your ownership over anything.
That's right. That's going to be one of the key ways that you could distinguish yourself from another party that possesses your keys. Is, you know, like if you bought your Bitcoin on River or Coinbase or, you know, wherever, you know, Bull Bitcoin, and you're KYC'd there, and you can show the withdrawals of the coins that funded your now drained wallet came from there. Those, you know, any proof of that. To Shinobi's point, like those centralized intermediaries from whom you bought coins typically do not delete KYC information. But if you were worried that they would, by the way, send them an email and say, please preserve it, right? Like that would all be helpful. The nature of this attack is so different than, like, you know, anyone that's followed, you know, like DeFi or crypto exchange hacks, you know, those funds emanate typically from one centralized honeypot, and the forensics is all about following them and tracing them downstream, right? To try to find those attacker addresses. Groups like SEAL and folks like ZachXBT and many others, that, let alone the Chainalysises and the Elliptics and stuff. And I know for other reasons, sometimes I think Bitcoiners often rightly criticize those firms, but they also help, and it can help in the future, law enforcement and others trace victims' funds and help them get them back. This is so different, right? Because The funds are not emanating from like one hacked exchange or one DeFi bridge or one, decentralized lending smart contract or whatever. We don't know the extent of the hack because by definition, the inputs, not just the outputs, are decentralized. And so we have to trace upstream just to even find the hacks and the attackers and the victims. That's why it's been so helpful for victims to come to me. And I would say, like, if you've been following our content, we've been, talking about wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, now all these footprints. I think I'm now up to O, which are themselves their own clear, isolated attacks that probably are smaller operators now operating and copycatting. And, they've now found the vulnerability too.
One question,
All of
Alex,
those, real
is
quick, Shinobi, all of those except for wave 1 were identified because of victims coming forward.
have you had any degree of success or any basis to even start from attempting to distinguish attackers from people who might be trying to recover coins to
Yeah.
return to users? I know personally of at least one person who definitively did that in the first day, but I know there's others talking about such efforts.
Yeah. So you mean like white hat activity to,
Yeah, and also before we get into that really quickly, just for any, you are going to have to try to prove your ownership of coins after this, and there is no airtight way to do so. And you are going to need KYC information to have any strong proof or claim that might make it through whatever process if coins are recovered. People who acquired coins with no KYC will not have that option. Like they will not have those records to even attempt to make a stronger claim in the first place. So I know people are already doing it and that is what it is, but please don't proactively jump to doing that yourself too without considering that other side of things.
yeah, I think that's an important point. And I think efforts now should still be focused on alerting and educating people that still have funds in vulnerable addresses to move them. Um, I am aware of some efforts as well, white hat efforts. I cannot, based on chain data, distinguish between a white hat and a black hat. It's not possible, right? So, if the only way, let me say, the only way that I could would be if either a white hat told me this address is a white hat, one that I would trust, of course. I'd have to know because black hat could say, hey, don't mark my addresses, that's a white hat. Like, how would I know? They look identical on chain as theft, right? And then, or if a victim said, actually, hey, mine were white hatted and returned to me, it's the same attribution that I'm getting from victims to know that they're stolen in the first place. Because what I thought you were going to ask, Shinobi, was like, how do I know that I'm not sweeping up in these patterns? Say an actual user just moving their
Mm-hmm.
coins to a new custody arrangement. Um, I
Yeah.
can't always know, right? I can't always know. And there have been, I sounded the alarm on Sunday about what I called wave 4. Actually, was that might even have just been yesterday. It's been a long few days.
Yeah, it has.
Um, that as I was identifying a new pattern, realized that the pattern was live at the chain tip. So then I looked at my mempool, to see if there were pending transactions that matched the pattern. There were, right? And so I said, th- there might be some false positives in these addresses, right? But like in the abundance of caution to try to alert anyone that I can, like, there's no like 1-800 Bitcoin for me to call the Bitcoin universe. That's why I posted that with, these are ones that are already confirmed that I think are in a new wave, operationalized wave. But this is a mempool list of transactions in the mempool that look like they could be. Um, I still haven't promoted wave 4 into like the high confidence set that we're reporting. I have it there triaged, like it looks like a wave. It did not continue, right? It was a burst like the other waves were, with a defined topography and other features that make it likely, in my view, but still at just a medium and high confidence. Um, the team at Nunchuck, and I followed up. They reached out to me and said, hey, we think there's some false positives in here. One, there's some multi-sigs, and we think some of those are our clients manually migrating funds. I am running checks. I am still discounting multi-sigs that I find, as if I see them in a set that I think is potentially victims, I am discounting them and holding them in my, what I call my candidate space, because the confirmed ones of very high confidence, waves 1, 2, and 3, and some of these other smaller footprints have zero multi-sigs. I've yet to find a multi-sig transaction from a victim that I find to be very high confidence, an attacker drain.
I think also, Alex, something that just occurred to me you might be able to use going forward is any of those multisigs that move directly into other multisigs. I think that right there would be a very high
Yeah.
confidence it's the user migrating.
The issue though, right? I mean, some of the, like the script derivation pass, like I can't tell if it is a multi-sig until later once they spend. I do think if you go multi-sig to
I
multi-sig
mean,
to,
you
to
could
something
have
else,
a degree of confidence if it's
that's right.
not using like
It's not an
specific
address that
address
can't be
pairs.
a multi-sig.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's right. And but frankly, I'm even doing it even simpler now. It just didn't, that was so live that I didn't run the multi-sig check on the spends that I was seeing. In any case, like, but you're right. I honestly, right now, there's no evidence of any multi-sig being drained at all. So to be clear, we all know, well, maybe we don't all know, those who've been looking at this for days and on, Q&A with Wicked and you and everyone else on there, and Gen X and D++ and just all these other great Bitcoiners that have been helping people migrate their funds. If you've been that level, then you know that a Coldcard that is vulnerable otherwise, right? Like an MK3, for example, with no passphrase and no external entropy added, is definitively vulnerable here. If you have a multi-sig quorum where those can reach the signing threshold, the multi-sig is vulnerable, okay? But I still haven't seen any of those yet. And my guess, and I bet you Portland or Rob Hamilton or Calais or other people working more closely on the sort of constructing the attack red team side could probably tell this. My guess is those, even though they are vulnerable, they're just lower priority. The attackers haven't yet gotten down to those as options. So I am discounting all multi-sig spends I see as not likely attackers at the moment.
Hmm.
But some of the things we found, and I want to say, like I said before, like the first wave of attacks, which is like that first 1,000 Bitcoin, the first wave 1, that, at least for me, was identified by Block Inc. engineers who found this pattern. They published the pattern. They said it was a variety of things, but some of them were, fixed fee rate, like burst transactions, all in a few blocks, just in 41 minutes. Many previously unrelated coins getting sent to just a few collector addresses. That's a red flag, generally speaking. Dormancy, all of them very dormant. Many of them never spent before. All the TXOs created after the Coldcard March 17, 2021 firmware bug was introduced. I ran that and constructed the set, and that's wave 1, right? Wave 2 and 3, I have very high confidence in, but those were discovered because of victim reports. Literally, there is no pattern except wave 4, which I'm still holding as, contingent candidate, not confirmed. All of the other patterns that I've published about, like I think I've published about pattern up through N, A through N. I'm calling those footprints because they're smaller than waves, right? And I haven't published yet, but I'm up to like categorizing up to P. So MNOP now. All of these are identified by victims telling me they are hacked, and me looking at what that pattern looks like. What is this attacker doing, right? So again, it's just to reiterate that. And by the way, none of these have I seen a multi-sig in yet. So that's why it is ultimately possible. I think if vulnerable cold cards can reach a signing threshold in a multi-sig quorum, that multi-sigs will appear in the victim set, but none have yet. And again, I have to reiterate, like, do not feel ashamed. Like, file your reports. I will help you. I will give you a literally free forensic brief that you can use. to help make those reports, even just attach it to your report. But it also helps others because it helps us identify more topographies of attackers. There are multiple attackers at this point, and they don't
Really,
all look the same.
really quick, just for viewers, because I know, I know if I had been affected and I was in this situation, I would be very hesitant to reach out to someone like you and share information. But like to anyone who's been affected, your privacy is blown. Like there is no undoing it. Like over time, multiple people, and there will probably be people for years grinding these keys out just to get access to all of this transaction data. And as they generate each key, they get the XPub, they get the whole transaction history. Like all of that is going to come out
Yeah.
eventually, and it's already done. So like you're just delaying what's inevitably going to happen. Whereas right now, if you get that information sooner to people like Alex, they can help put together a better assessment. They can get a better idea of who is pulling these attacks, more information to track them, and you are increasing the odds that some of these coins could be recovered.
100%. Like that, I can help you make your filings and establish victimhood. And then to Shinobi's point, if you have KYC in the back of your transaction, upstream from your drain wallets, that'll be useful. Even keeping the cold cards. I don't know. I think there might be a way to show, forensically, like that could be evidence. Like just there's no need to throw it
Yep.
away, right?
I,
Like,
like specifically keep that. It's not going to be as good as showing the device definitively proves your specific individual wallet. And it does have to be the device that generated the key, not just the one that it's stored on now. But it should be able to, if coins are ever recovered, at least boil things down to buckets. So you can put a set of wallets and a set of users in a bucket together. And even though you can't prove an individual person legitimately owns an individual wallet, you can definitively say like these people's wallets are in this bucket. So
yeah.
you're at least making the problems that have to get sorted out smaller and more manageable.
Yeah. And if you ever spent and you actually like have on your SD card like a transaction of a PSBT or the full transaction, um, that can be forensically examined, possibly to effectively create a timestamp that you had the key earlier. You don't want to deal with all this now, and you don't have to. I just mean
Just
like
save what you can.
save
Like
what you
if
have.
anything's related, like remotely connected, save it.
That's
Like
right.
and like more is always better in this
That's
kind of
right.
situation.
Yeah, and we are the reason to share now too is like Shinobi said, like the right now the majority of the funds that have been drained are sitting inert in attacker addresses and have not moved. That may not always be true, right? So it's essential that we get those addresses onto the various the crypto ISAC and Seal and the crypto exchanges and to the FinCEN. I mean, it's I, I'm a libertarian, right? But the government will promulgate these to all the centralized intermediaries so that if they show up there, they can be frozen. Proving that they're yours is what we were just talking about. It's a little bit more nuanced than that, but you greatly increase your odds if you preserve what evidence you have and file reports, right? But also like we want to identify as many attacker addresses as possible. Like I was saying before, the victim set is fully decentralized. It's not like, oh, everything coming out of this exchange is hacked. Like we have to identify the victims first to even find the attackers. And so it's all about getting those attacker addresses to the centralized intermediaries as fast as possible. People have the crypto exchange community so far has been quite good and willing to take these addresses in. The chain analysis firms are tagging them. They're tagged in Arkham. They're tagged in Chainalysis Reactor. Like these things, like this is working. It's no guarantee. The Bitfinex hacker Razzle Khan had those funds for what, like 5.5 years. Then they screwed up and I think tried to buy Walmart gift cards with a peel of them, and that's how they got caught. Right? Like it could take a long time, but it is still possible. I would say too about the your point about the XPub. I want to say this because I've said it privately to a number of victims. Some a lot of people aren't that many people. I think the vast majority of victim addresses only had inputs, had never spent, which is, it says a lot to me about the cultural demographic of the victims. And it's, I have to say, in my in my personal vault and where I stack my sats, I've never spent either. I've got other wallets where I've spent, obviously, but well, maybe not obviously, but um, so some people, though, they've just been diligently, they're true believers in Bitcoin. They're true believers in its long-term prospects and philosophy, and they've just been DCAing sometimes for years. They may not know how to pull a, a nice spreadsheet of all their addresses and transaction history for me. That's all I need, to be clear. If you give me your drained addresses, even just those, if they're all drained and you're confident you know exactly which ones, that should be enough for me. TXIDs alone might not be enough. Some of these attacker patterns are actually co-spending on the input side, like a coin join, because they have the keys for multiple victims. So they're doing one transaction with coins from multiple people. So the TXID might show me what is likely an attacker, but it may not help me identify your coins. But some others are just having trouble. They're sending me the address that they were drained to, rather than the TXID. And I don't know, I can't give them a forensic report of where their coins are because of that. Some people have asked if they can share XPubs with me, and I've said that's okay, but I wanted to tell you, you should only do that for your fully drained wallet. And two, if you do that, just so you know, I have the capability of deriving all of your public keys and therefore seeing all of your prior spending from to and from this address. Now, I don't give a shit about your prior spending, and I can assure you I'm not fucking looking at that. But if you're sensitive to that, you shouldn't share the XPub. And also, the irony of, not irony, to the point I made before, people have been sharing XPubs with me for their drained wallets. Many of them have no prior spends. So I would say, to me, maybe you have a different view, but maybe you can clarify. If it's fully drained and you'll never use this wallet again, which you should not if it's fully drained, to be clear, because the keys are compromised, and you have no prior spending history that at all, or that you care that I might see, I think it's fine to share the XPub with me. So and some have found that easier to go into Sparrow or whatever they're using and just export master public key, right? Like, that's definitive, by the way, for me to trace. I can tell you, I haven't even tried to upstream trace at all. I have, API keys to things like Arkham that can do some on-chain attribution. Maybe that's a project that I'll do in the future to try to help the victims know if they got the coins from a KYC venue. Like, some may not know. They got coins from a lot of places and they can't remember, but I haven't even done that at all. So to be clear, if you were to share the XPub with me, like, we're not, I don't give a shit where the coins came from or what you did prior to the drain. It's solely to help me gather all of the relevant drained addresses. But if you know what you're doing, don't share the XPub. All I need are addresses and TXIDs. And like I said, if you know with certainty the totality of your drained addresses, those are all I need. So, again, I'm not just doing this. I mean, we're not charging for this. This is not a service that I or Galaxy provides at all to anyone, like as a service. I just started looking into it, and then people started reaching out, and I realized that I could help them, and that by them giving to me, we could identify. It's just such a unique vulnerability. You don't see. I'm not aware of any exploit that looks like this really in the history of crypto. There have been random number generator, failures in the past. I don't know. They certainly, I don't think, resulted in
Not for something like this though. That's supposed to be long-term cold storage.
Right.
Like every entropy issue like this I've been aware of has been like a web wallet or like a phone
Right.
wallet that's supposed to be like you're spending money. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're sorry. Just really quick, we're joined now by Zach Herbert from Foundation Devices. How's it going, Zach?
Hey, Shinobi, it's going okay. Hey, Alex, good to see you.
Good to see you, Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess before we kind of pivot a little bit into the what happened here, Alex, is there anything else you can think of that's important to tell people in terms of what they should get together if they've been affected? Anything else they can do?
I think we've covered it, but like I just want to reiterate that everything other than what I call wave one was identified because of victim reports. I can help you. You can help me and other victims by sharing your transaction information. There's no other way to fingerprint these attackers than that. We're sharing the attacker addresses we identify with US federal law enforcement, crypto exchanges, Chainalysis, TRM, Crypto ISAC, SEAL, anyone we can to label them as stolen so that they can hopefully get frozen. So, and I can't remember if I said this earlier, Shinobi, or on another, I think I did, but um, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't be ashamed. You did everything right. That's partly what makes this so tragic, and it is tragic. And I've uh, had countless, well, not count, about 100 victim reports directly to me, some of which are absolutely gut wrenching. I have nothing but love and empathy for the victims, and I can assure you, utter disgust and contempt with the attackers. Um, and I'll be doing everything I can to stop them. So please reach out to me on X at Intangible Coins. I will help you. I've got a pretty full inbox, but I will get to you. Maintain your evidence and file your police reports. If you want to wait until I can give you one of our forensic reports that we've been producing, do that. I will get to you. That's it. It's ongoing too. This is ongoing. It's still ongoing.
Yeah, so I guess we've been focused mostly, Zach, on kind of the scope of things, like what people can do in the wake if they've been affected. I guess would you like to kind of at a high level, like just walk us through like what was this exploit, like what was this bug, and kind of the scope of it? I know people are getting very antsy and like nervous. Like this was specifically an issue with Coldcard and a specific version of Coldcards. Thank you for giving us your time, Alex. Sorry, and not just this isn't just a general issue that affects every device or every wallet out in the space. So would you kind of, you know, walk us through here while I try to wake my brain up a little bit?
No, yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me on, Shinobi. I think that's a really good place to start because there's been a lot of confusion and fear. I've been in a lot of the Twitter spaces. I don't know how you're even still awake right now and functioning, and folks like Wicked and Rob Hamilton and everything, and have helped so many people. But there's been a lot of fear about, if this could have happened to Cold Card, then it could happen to anyone, right? It could happen to any wallet. It could happen to any manufacturer. Should we be afraid of generating random numbers? Should we ever be able to trust our hardware wallets again? And I think it would help to talk a little bit about like the specific bug itself. And I would call it a bug. My best assessment is that it's something, just went, it was introduced by accident back in 2021. And effectively what happened was, there was a major change to the Cold Card code base. A lot of code changed at once, and there was a bug where effectively the hardware random number generator was there. It's physically present, on the circuit board. It's inside the chip, but it was not, wired up correctly in software, and so it fell back to a less secure random number generator. And at the time, I believe it was the Mark III device that was out. And so that's what was predominantly affected. There was, such a low amount of randomness that most of the lost funds that we've seen in the last few days have been Mark III devices. It's what I think I had a Mark III at the time, like in 2020. So it kind of times up correctly. And a lot of folks, obviously have this hardware, but it did continue through future devices as well. It's just that future devices added, when they added a second secure element chip and a second or an additional source of randomness, it actually did introduce enough randomness where, it was more secure than the Mark IIIs. but still, crackable. Uh, and there's some confusion, I think, right now. I don't know if from your perspective what you've seen. I've seen folks say they have Mark IVs and they've been compromised. I don't know if I
I've
fully.
begun, yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
an initial report or incident regarding Mark IVs from people I consider credible, but just
yeah.
a little here or there, no big wave or anything yet.
And I don't know if I fully believe it. Not that I would doubt someone's obviously, what they said. I obviously, we
People
have to listen.
misremember things though. Like we had one incident where someone was confident it was a Mark
Yeah,
IV, but they forgot they generated the seed on a 3 and then imported
that's
it
what I was
later.
about to say. And so, like, we emailed out all of our customers on, I think Friday morning, um, and asked them, if you generated a seed on a Coldcard Mark III, move your funds. I was trying to figure out if I had, because that's what I used, prior to starting Foundation up until the day when we shipped, Passport to customers, or I guess a little bit before we had shipped. I was using a Mark III personally, and I was trying to remember, did I generate my seed on a Mark III and then import it, into Passport? And I actually still don't remember. I'm not sure, right? I assume not now because those fun, I left like a tiny drop in there to see what would happen, and it hasn't moved. So I assume I didn't generate it on a Mark III.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's kind of an overview of the situation. I don't think it should. I don't think it should reduce people's faith in self custody or hardware wallets. There's been a huge amount of eyes on the code for every vendor that's open source. Folks like Rob Hamilton have used AI models to generate reports and properly submit them and responsibly disclose them to all the different vendors, Foundation included. He's been able to say, publicly, say you're not just relying on any single biased, manufacturer, right? That there's been no critical bugs found in the, source of seed generation, or I think just in general, right? Nothing critical that would cause any kind of loss of funds. And, we've been able to verify that for Passport. I've also turned, because we have cyber access for GPT, I've turned those models loose on the other, wallets, and have not been able to find anything critical either, which is good. And so my interpretation of this, and I don't know if it's your takeaway or if you would, how you want folks thinking about it, is that this was, in my opinion, like a negligence from a specific vendor. And I think it was an accident. I'm not like putting a conspiracy hat on or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it was an accident, but negligence. And at the same time, if you feel like you are capable of securely generating your own, random numbers and generating your own seeds, then you should feel empowered to do so. And every manufacturer should help you, and empower you to do that. So I'll stop there and see how technical you want to dive in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like kind of the big like situation we find ourselves in is just like the shock. I personally always try not to give one sized fits all advice to everybody. So I don't recommend the same things to the same people, but
Yeah.
I have recommended Coldcard to people before. Like that's what I personally used and am still using at this moment. And I feel like like where do we go from here? Because it's such a mess to, pick apart. Like, is the right thing to simply trust another device? Or is it to take on the extra complexity of setups like multi-sig or collaborative services? And, I feel like all of this has to kind of go back to the starting board a little bit. You know, like how do we introduce people to tools to
No.
manage their own Bitcoin? Like how do we just handle like that responsibility in a way? Because that's how a lot of people are feeling right now is responsible for this situation. Like those of us that have recommended this device before
Mm.
or have, pushed this above other options. like
Yeah.
at this point, I don't know what to do or say about any of these things.
Yeah, and this is hard because I feel like there's from folks like you who have recommended Coldcard, or I was watching like Marty Bent and Matt Odell yesterday on their live stream, and I've heard, or I was watching BTC sessions, and he had a live stream as well. I've been tuning into everything because I also want to try to like take feedback, right, as one of the hardware makers, and figure out like, should we add dice rolls, right, which we're doing now, but we're trying to be really careful about how we do it so no one screws anything up, right, and so on. I've heard multiple folks say maybe I shouldn't be making any recommendations for self custody again. No, you're not recommending any products, and I understand the urge. And at the same time, I feel like we need you all to be recommending or at least helping folks learn how to self custody, right? Because the paradox of this entire situation is that the people who were hurt the most are the people who listened to all the hardcore Bitcoin content and were told to self custody. I think that's what hurts the most here. And I think the wrong approach would be to just be like I can't recommend, or I can't teach you how to do this anymore, and run the risk that I messed up again and recommended a product that had some, issue with it. So that's hard, but I understand like the what you must be feeling, and what so many others must be feeling. I think there's a huge takeaway from my end is just the free and open source software and the FOSS elements to all this. I think that I have an opinionated view about what I think makes a good hardware wallet, and there's a lot of other competing opinions for both anything from the user experience of the device to how to back it up. Are you doing your seed words? Are you stamping stuff into metal? Are you doing what we offer now, where you can like tap some NFC cards? Are you doing the BitKey style, where it's like a seedless multi-sig? Are you doing a multi-vendor multi-sig, where you might be getting security but trading off privacy, which is a problem, right now? There's a lot of opinions out there, and I hope that the Bitcoin space will kind of allow all of the companies to kind of compete with each other now and put forward their best opinions and hold all companies accountable equally, if that makes sense. And so like, Foundation is going to have an opinionated way to onboard and back up and set up. And like, we're going to be competing with BitKey and, the other devices and Trezor and Ledger and so on. But I would hope that the kinds of content that we would see moving forward is less about get a Coldcard, and more about these are the different trade-offs with the devices. Foundation has these trade-offs. Trezor has these trade-offs. Ledger has these trade-offs. This one's not free and open source. And instead of like saying the product that's recommended, right, it's more about saying this is a kind of unbiased overview of all the tools at your disposal, and these are the pros and these are the cons. And then if a con changes, to then update everyone on that, right? And so I think BitKey is a good example because I still have a lot of criticism of them, but I put out a blog post about them a couple of years ago, and they fixed a bunch of my criticism. And so then like, okay, we now need to update that. Or like Passport Core, we've discontinued. Passport Prime is new. I don't think anyone has really, from like the Bitcoin kind of media side of things, has really reviewed it, right, or tested it or explained what those trade-offs look like. And so that's how I'm thinking about it. It's like let the free market win, but like help everyone understand what's good, what's bad, and especially defend free and open source software. Because I think that, my main personal trying to separate some of the emotions from over the last several years. But I think free open source and Bitcoin companies that are even sharing code, like sharing libraries, is very good for the space. Exactly. Yeah. And for example, with our new Passport device, we for the Bitcoin app, which is the Bitcoin wallet, we use BDK, which is made by Block. but a lot of companies use BDK. We were the first ones to use it in our mobile app as well. I think even before Block had it, which was really cool. And we were working with them. We had a line of communications back and forth to Block, like, hey, we have this bug, right? Hey, we're trying to get BDK to work on our mobile app. You know, our mobile app is a Flutter app with a Rust backend, and like we're going back and forth on it. Or we use Rust Bitcoin as well, which is another library in our Bitcoin app. So like the more collaboration, like we can compete with each other, but we can still share open source libraries. We can still find bugs in each other's stuff. And I do think that's the ultimate solution here. And I'm very biased, and I probably have a reason to be saying this, but I do think that the Bitcoin media and community should really push for FOSS, like should really push for it as a key differentiator. And most of the hardware now is FOSS, which I'm really happy about, right? There's a couple holdouts. So I'll stop there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, this has just been a wild last 5 days. So I guess in terms of the actual bug itself,
Yeah.
I think it's really important for users to kind of internalize, like, again, like this was a single hardware vendor, but it was also a single issue. Like it was sourcing the randomness used to generate your keys. And there are many devices. There are even many ways to generate a seed without devices, with very good documentation and tutorials. I believe Blockstream and Bitbox both produce kind of tables that they have published where you can literally go from the numbers on the dice straight to a word on a piece of paper. And these are things you can do. You can verify yourself without trusting a specific device to do it. And you know, I am not saying this in any way like people should have done this. You know, I want to reiterate again what Alex said while he was still on the stream with us. Like, anyone impacted here, you did nothing wrong. Like, you did everything you were supposed to do. You put in all the work, you did all the research, and you listened to people who are supposed to be the people that you can trust and depend on, to be honest with you. But going forward from here, like for the future, these are things people can do to take those extra steps to protect themselves. Like, you can have that extra degree of scrutiny. You can find the most important thing like that a device does, generate the keys in the first place, and you can decide, I don't trust the device for that. You can trust it to hold your keys, to sign things with it, but not for that part. Like, you can really choose where you do and don't trust things as a user. And I think we should do a lot better job of really getting across the import or you know, the real meaning behind that to users. Like, it really is something you can do that just removes a huge degree of risk or trust. And we should really make people, or do our best to make people, really appreciate and understand that, because that is the most powerful, valuable part about Bitcoin. The fact that if you do put that time and effort in, or want to dedicate that time, you can remove trust in those areas where you dedicate that time.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think we should maybe focus on some nuance about, like, what are you trying to protect yourself from as a Bitcoiner? You know, are you trying to protect yourself from a hardware wallet vendor that makes a mistake and is not caught, and that mistake is not caught by anyone else? Or are you trying to protect yourself against like a malicious hardware wallet vendor? Because my way of always thinking about it, and why I've been resistant to things like dice rolls from a user experience perspective of and we're, I think there's a good way to, you know, to get it done. You still there, Shinobi Baba? Oh, cool. You can hear me? Okay, cool. So from like a user experience perspective, I've always been resistant to dice rolls because I've known that if the hardware wallet vendor was malicious, there's other ways that they could, compromise funds. There's like chosen nonce, type attacks, or I mean, for device, I mean, you could also, you could theoretically just send the seed off the device with like whether it's QR codes or Bluetooth or USB. Like there'd be so many ways for an actual malicious hardware wallet vendor, to steal funds. And so I always said like, you should generate your seed if you want to off the device, bring it in. Passport will autocomplete that 12th or 24th word, and if you don't trust the vendor, like you're going to have other potential problems.
I really think there isn't much to do to protect against like an outright malicious vendor except multi-sig across
I was going to say,
different
yeah,
vendors.
absolutely. So that's a great way to protect yourself. So that's what I mean. What I mean is like it's important to think about the reasons why you like roll dice or bringing your own entropy, because it really depends on like what you're protecting against. I don't want anyone to think I rolled some dice and I bought this hardware wallet from China from some random company, and therefore I am safe. Like that's not the right solution. If that's your threat profile that you're looking to protect yourself from, I think that's, like you said, like a multi-vendor multi-sig helps address that. To be honest, like I never, when I was thinking about all these things and talking about it over the last several years, the thought never crossed my mind that a vendor would make a mistake of not wiring up the RNG. Like that was not any part of my threat profile. It just didn't even occur to me. And so that's why I'm right now kind of recalculating everything. I'm like, should we be putting users through these specific flows with dice or generating their seed offline and so on? At the same time, I struggle because for self-custody adoption, like I think it's criminally low right now. I mean, if you look at the number of hardware wallets that Ledger has said they sold, I don't think it's more than 8 million. They occasionally put out a press release each year, and for a couple of years it was the same 7 million number. And so I assume it's like not more than 8 million because we've been in bear market, territory. Trezor has said a number like a couple million. I don't know about the others. Coldcard doesn't look like it was that many. Thank God, right? Because if this was someone like Trezor or Ledger, I mean, it would have been one of the worst, if not the worst events in all of crypto history. I think this was already the one of the top 2 worst events for hardcore Bitcoiners, but it could have been, after Mt. Gox, right? But it could have been horrendous. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there. I'm also fried, Shinobi. I'm my brain is fried. What was I saying?
Yeah, kind of just like where do we go?
Oh yeah,
in terms of
yeah. No, I got it. So what I was going to try to say is, if we add a huge amount of friction, then okay, so then there's like fewer than 10, 15 million people worldwide using hardware wallets. So that's also the trade-off. And I know the folks at like Block are thinking about it that way too, because you have to do some trade-off between empowering those folks that have the ability and desire to roll their own seed words, but then also making sure that like you're secure enough to welcome in a much larger number of people and pull them away from the exchanges and the ETFs, and give them a way to onboard and backup where they're not going to screw themselves. But you have to generate good random numbers to do that. But then also my desire personally of like wanting to still allow users to have that control where they could switch away like from us, or like what if Foundation disappeared? And that's always been my problem too with like a BitKey, where it's like, okay, They have a really good backup system, and we've looked at stuff like that and talked about it. But I still want to give those power users or anyone the ability to see the seed words. But then at the same time, I also know that the seed words are where the vast majority of losses come from. Because we had a customer about a month or two ago that got really badly phished and got tricked into entering those seed words. And so all this stuff is in my mind simultaneously. I'm sure it's in your mind too. And it's just the spaces of the last few days, it's been so helpful to everyone, but also I can't help thinking, like, if it's just the answer is just dice rolls, then we're going to lose most people to, the custodial providers.
Yeah, that is just kind of where to start for the people there now with things. But as far as bringing more people on board, like, we are going to have to rethink a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of like everything from device architecture to the way that devices interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the thing in my mind right now after this is how do we have something like a BitKey model that is a more open agnostic protocol?
Right.
That could maybe not necessarily, but potentially be device agnostic, but definitely vendor agnostic in terms of software and who's operating a recovery key. Like those services and those ways of designing the like products and services are becoming more common. Like, we need to start thinking about making those interoperable and trying to have those exist on the same kind of playing field as wallets do now, where you can just take your seed and move to another one if you want, or if something goes out of business, rather than trying to solve these types of problems by just creating more closed ecosystems that have a higher and higher friction and cost for users to move between.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I also think, like, we've been looking to architect some of that, and I think now we're going to have to accelerate it. Things like Frost are really interesting. What's cool about Frost is that you could do a key rotation, like swap in a signer and bring in a new signer without having to move the funds. And that's been one of the biggest pain points for all the multi-sig options so far. I think there's been a couple big pain points for all the multi-sig options. Like, one is privacy, because except I think BitKey actually addressed this recently, which is pretty cool. But for everyone else, privacy is a big issue because the provider, if they're holding a key in the multi-sig and they have the configuration, can see, all of your transactions and your balance. That's not good. But then the other big issue has been, like, if you do lose one of the keys or if a key is compromised, you have to sweep all the funds, and you theoretically a vendor could offer a way to privately sweep, where you take each UTXO, right, each coin, and you move it like individually to a new one. But that could be very costly on chain. Maybe not now, but like in the future, that could be very costly on chain. And what's really cool about Frost is you could just do a clean a clean rotation of the signers, and the funds stay where they are. So we're looking at that. That requires that devices are compatible, of course, and then the question is, would folks want it as part of a vendor like Foundation, or would they be more comfortable with some kind of other party, right, that is using hardware from different companies? So, or do we collaborate? Do a few of our companies want to work together, and you can buy a pack of something? Or we've even thought about, could we use Passport as almost like a coordinator with other devices that have smaller screens, maybe not as friendly, but they still work great with all this stuff. So we're trying to figure out. We're also in touch, by the way, with some other companies collaborating now who would normally be seen as competitors in just the last few days. And I think that's going to be part from the course coming out of this. Yeah, talking like, can we offer a pack with devices from us, and two other vendors, right? And can we offer that to customers, and in the short term maybe give them instructions and help to set up with like a Sparrow or Nunchuck or something else like that. And then in the maybe medium or longer term, could we enable one of our apps to be like the main kind of coordinator, right, and have it a little bit more seamless and first party? I don't know, but I do think, just so you know, like behind the scenes, there is a lot of collaboration discussion taking place. I was even engaging with Ledger's CTO back and forth on X the other day. We don't agree with each other about open source, but like they're engaging, right? Which is really important. And I think that that's what you want to see, right now.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I think we just hit the 1 hour mark. I think I need to get some sleep. So, do you have any kind of last parting remarks or things for viewers to think about?
Only what you've been saying this whole time. If you have funds on a Coldcard, just get them off as fast as possible. Even if you have a Mark IV or newer, right? And if you need any help, just reach out to anyone. There's so many folks who are helping out right now. And also just to echo what Alex said, because I haven't really heard people say that too clearly. It's not your fault. This is really brutal, and it's not your fault. And then finally, just like I'm still very optimistic about self-custody. I don't want this to devolve into some kind of anti-self-custody thing, which I've been seeing a lot of folks on X.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but I've been seeing many large voices on X
Enough.
saying, "I told you so." Self-custody isn't for most people, and I don't like that train of thought. And we and other companies are going to work to try to make sure that that's not true.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'd like to thank you for taking your time and coming on today, Zach. And
Thanks, Shinobi. Yeah.
everybody out there who has affected, again, like, this isn't your fault. Like, document what you can. Keep your device. Do not tamper with it. Do not delete or wipe anything off of it. Collect any KYC information from exchanges you've deposited to that wallet from. Just collect information that you think might be related to that wallet or helpful in any way, and just hold on to it and keep it safe. And for everybody else, like, please reach out to anybody you know. Even as late as yesterday, I'm still hearing of people who are just finding out about this. They are not even aware that this vulnerability exists. Like, if you just go through your DMs on Twitter, on Telegram, on any app that you engage with people about Bitcoin on, and just go through. Think anybody who might be using a Coldcard that you know. Anybody who just in general might be part of a group of people disconnected from the Twitter space, more active communities. Like, reach out and let them know. Like, literally, one message like that could save somebody's life savings. I have been seeing that happen and be the case for the last 5 days. So we'll get through this, everybody. I know this is one of the most fucked up things that we've seen in this space, but we'll come out on the other side stronger because of it.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say too is that I know Coincard is sending out emails to the whole list, but they're not necessarily. It's taken a long time for them to get delivered. Like, I just got one this morning that was a repeat advisory, but I never got the original. Mm-hmm. And only so my first notice from them was today. Like, a lot of people don't know. There's still a lot of people who just have no idea. So I totally echo what you're saying, and I hope we'll even get some of the larger publications covering this, like I know the crypto space. Like, I was on with the block yesterday morning, first thing, talking about it. They're usually covering more crypto stuff. They were covering this first thing Monday morning, and that was the first thing I said, like, before talking about anything else, right? If you have a Coldcard, go get the funds off. And so I think a lot of people still don't know. And I think I was also very I wanted to start talking immediately when this event happened about like why it happened and unpacking everything, but like that probably was too soon to be doing that. And like, we're just trying to get as many people to get their funds off of and get them to safety as possible. And I hope that there'll be some time in the coming weeks and months to maybe have like what you would call like a post-mortem, which is what you typically say in within like at least, a lot of industries use it or and so on, but like we use that in engineering term, right? If there's a bug, if something bad happens, you get the whole team together, you do a post-mortem. And I hope there'll be some time to do that for kind of the Bitcoin space as a whole over the coming weeks and months. Because what I think would be really, really bad is if a week from now, the Twitter algo stops serving us all this stuff, or X algo or whatever, and everyone just kind of forgets about it, and then no one addresses like the underlying series of events or reasons where this could have even happened, in the first place.
Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you again for coming
Thanks,
on,
Jim.
Zach. And
Yeah.
take care, everybody. We'll figure
Thanks,
this out.